Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today, we're talking our king. That's right, I'm so excited to dive into this book. Now, elephant in the room, I have allergies. I feel great. I just sound crazy. So bear with me. I have a hot cup of tea next to me. We can get through this together. I'm just too excited to talk about this book to let a little allergies get in my way. So let's dive in to Our King by Robert Jobson. I really am enjoying it. Robert Jobson, I did not know anything about, so I did some research on him, and it turns out he's actually written several books about the British royal family, including Charles at 70, and he also wrote the Royal Family Operations Manual. I'd be interested in that book. He also wrote William at 40, The Making of a Modern Monarch, as well as co-authoring Diana, Closely Guarded Secret, with Princess Diana Scotland Yard Personal Protection Officer. That's a little, that's a mouthful. Ken Wharf. So he's obviously had a lot of experience around the royal family and writing about them and all. So again, I'm excited to jump in this book. And I was trying to decide how to do it. And honestly, I wanted to get to the good stuff, and I feel like you guys probably do. So we're going to jump right into chapter 16, simply titled H and M. Now, I do want to go back and read. He wrote about when William and Catherine got together. So that's something that I do plan on going back and revisiting. But for now, let's talk chapter 16, H and M. Let me just tell you guys, if you don't know, if you don't have this book, let me just tell you. Okay, the first sentence of this chapter starts, Meghan Markle, an actress on the USA Network series Suits. And then he goes into this interview that she was doing. I just love that I don't know why I took that as a jab, and I find it very funny because it's like, yeah, this is what she's known for. She always tries to be known as a humanitarianism, and this guy wasn't biting. Instead, he was talking about her time on Suits. The other thing he does is he puts a quote at the beginning of each chapter, and this chapter's quote is from Prince Harry himself, and it says, quote, "This is a great love story. She sacrificed everything that she ever knew, the freedom that she had to join me in my world. And then, pretty soon after that, I ended up sacrificing everything that I knew to join her in her world." Of course, that was Prince Harry describing his relationship with his wife, Meghan. Okay, so again, this chapter starts out with Meghan, an actress on the USA Network series Suits. I will never not find that funny. Reflecting back, now if you remember on Netflix, she did this. She reflected back to an interview she gave. She pretended to be totally surprised and forgotten about this interview she gave where the interviewer asked her, let's see, what was it? Would you rather go on a date with Prince William or Prince Harry? Her response was, I don't know, she said, and she was laughing. And then the interviewer suggested Harry, and Meghan replied, sure, Harry. Now, side note, it was, I believe in the book Cordia's, I think it was Cordia's, it may have been Revenge, but I think it was Cordia's, where Valentine Lowe said, no, that's not exactly what happened. She had allegedly had her people insist on that question because it was right, not too long before they met. It was October 2015 when this interview went out. And so she wanted her name and his name to be in searches. She wanted somehow there to be a tie there, almost planting the seeds, basically. So that fact stuck with me, and I thought, oh my God, that is super calculating, and I didn't think about that. But anyway, okay, moving forward. So Jobson goes into how, again, she's reflecting back on this in the Netflix thing, and she says, honey, I'm sorry. Of course I choose you. Yeah, right. We've seen all the lustful looks she's given at William. But anyway, she uses it to show how little she knew about the royal family. And Harry's buying it hook, line, and sinker and saying, and look how far we've come. Trying to convince himself after claims that she had targeted him and be on a mission to secure this rich, famous British husband on her trip to London. He's trying to, that's why I felt like the whole Netflix thing was, right? A deflect. Basically, they were trying to use that as an opportunity to convince us all the stories we had heard and understood were completely wrong. But then from here, Jobson goes into when they first met. Now, he takes more of Charles's relationship with them, and he'll go into that. So there's not a bunch of new revelations here. His version of them meeting is that Harry became aware of her as he was scrolling through his Instagram feed. He saw a clip of a mutual friend had posted that Meghan dog filter on Snapchat. And I laughed because I made that. If you're new here, you may want to go back and watch that because I had so much fun with that. I said Harry was confused. He thought he was getting a dog. So then he goes into how Harry arrived late on the date. He was all flustered and sweaty. Meghan found him, quote, refreshingly fun, I'm sure. That's because she was still trying to impress him. Imagine he arrived an hour late. If he even tries to walk off and shake somebody's hand, she's double clawing him. So, yeah, no, how things have changed. We can all see it, but Harry can't. Okay. So again, the author is not so concerned with the details like we've seen in Revenge and stuff. His point of view is more of that of Charles's, and basically explains, they went on their first date. They spent a week in Botswana. There was very much a secret romance going on that got scooped in October 2016. In November 2016, it was confirmed. Now, this is the part I didn't know that I found interesting because I keep hearing stories about this, how Harold and Fraud, Harry and Meghan, love to put things in the press, especially if the timing can mess with anybody else. I feel like we're about to see a lot of this and coming up with Coronation. But Charles was visiting, is it Bahrain? And that's when Harry put out his, quote, impetuous statement. Now, remember, he put out that quote that's the first time we saw him say, like, I saw my mom go as a result of the press, and now you're doing it to this woman I'm dating. Also, Harry claimed that, quote, she had never been part of the tabloid culture. You guys, I'm sorry, I'm like choking on the bullshit there because we have seen stories where she was calling paparazzi on herself, in Canada and stuff, and allegedly threatened to cut things off if he didn't go public with their relationship. So if tabloids really were her concern, she would have never wanted it public. Anybody with eyes and a brain can see through that bullshit. Anyway, coming from the point of view of Charles, he was, again, focused on this Foreign Office sponsored visit, and he didn't have the opportunity to make a response to Harry's impetuous statement. And then the author goes in to say, far from being crushed, as some later claimed, Charles was disappointed by his son's bad manners. He would have never done such a thing if the Queen was on tour. Understandably, there's a hierarchy and a grid system, but Prince Harry seemed to think that when it came to Meghan Markle, she always would take precedence, one former aide said. So that's interesting too, because if you recall in Spare, Harry's whole thing was his dad. It's funny to say his dad was jealous and always wanted the positive press attention on himself. And yet it sounds like it was the other way around. That seems to be the page out of these two playbook because they love to, get with the press, of course, when it suits them, but to at all distract from somebody else. They seem to do it to Catherine mostly. When it's her birthday or she's working on a good cause or a charity, that's when their favorite time to drop something in the press is. And it sounds like they purposely did this when Charles was trying to get press for his trip. Now, the other thing that was interesting here is this author goes into William a little bit more and what was going on with William. William, too, had privately thought that Harry was overacting. But you gotta love William because what he did was put on a show of support for his brother. So on the 27th of November 2016, William released his own statement to clear up this speculation that he had been unhappy with Harry's decision. He said, quote, I absolutely understand the situation concerning privacy and support the need for Prince Harry to support those closest to him. And so basically he was backing up his brother. But Harry, as per usual, got confused, misread the situation, and decides that his father and brother and Other men in the royal family did not back him up, telling him that the treatment that Meghan was getting from press and paparazzi was par for the course. This is a side note for me. I have thought about this too. I would like to make a video because I've seen the way that they hunted Catherine in early days, where she had to beg them to stop, even when they were broken up, when she and William were broken up. And I have never seen anything even kind of like that with Meghan. It just doesn't appear to have happened. And so, again, you never hear a word of complaint out of Catherine, and yet it's been how much milking this from Meghan. It's absolutely ridiculous. So according to Jobson, William knew that Harry was completely smitten with Meghan, and it was obvious that Harry wanted to marry Meghan almost from the moment that they met. Knowing how much Harry craved the idea of being happily married and settling down, I almost feel bad for him, except for he's a knob. William, being the sensible one, tried to urge caution. He said, "It might not happen, Harold, and you've got to be okay with that." That was a quote from in the book here. When Harry told him it was going to happen, William did not back down and went on. Quote, "She's an American actress after all, Harold. Anything might happen." And then there's a parentheses. Willie and Harold were the brothers' pet names for each other. I laugh because every time I say Harold, at least one person comments. Just look in the comments. You'll see it. His name's not Harold. I know. It'll be okay. Anyway, but it sounds like William was being the sensible one. He was trying to look out for Harold, of Harold and Fraud, and wasn't backing down, because if you truly love someone, which it sounds like William does, even if you think it's hard for them to hear, you're not going to stop because you want to protect that person. Well, Harry takes everything so personally, took it personally, and they were talking about how things were reaching a fever pitch. And that Harold, of course, was hurt by the comment. He's hurt by everything, and felt nervous when it came time to meet William and Catherine. Following their meeting, I wish he had gone into the meeting. He did not, but he just said, following the meeting, the noises came from the palace that they had, quote, got on fabulously. But Meghan later revealed she thought Catherine was standoffish. Quote, even when Will and Kate came over, and I met her for the first time. They came over for dinner. I remember I was in ripped jeans and I was barefoot. Meghan said, quote, like I was a hugger. I've always been a hugger. I didn't realize it's really jarring for a lot of Brits. I'm going to go ahead and interrupt the quote because this is all bullshit. We've talked about this. Cool. So she brags about wearing ripped jeans to meet William and Catherine, and yet, her future sister and brother-in-law, and yet wears $15,000 outfits to go to charity, you know what I mean? Like to like homeless shelters and stuff. And so, yeah, that's where her priorities are. Nothing she says is true. Nothing makes any sense. And then I've had a lot of people say in the comments they find that especially offensive. It's not that hugging is jarring for Brits. It just depends on who you want to hug. And I think that's true no matter where you're from. There are certain people you don't want to hug. And maybe Meghan, since she can't tell the truth about anything, maybe Catherine picked up on it immediately, it sounds like, and didn't want to hug her. Can you blame her? Again, this is where I do like this author, because he's quick to point out it's another swipe at Catherine. That's Meghan's favorite pastime. She loves to take swipes at Catherine. We've seen this quite a bit. Okay, so then the book drops a bomb. And unfortunately, I had seen it in the news, so I knew it was coming, and you've probably seen it too. But in case you haven't, I'm going to read this part to you. You ready? It got worse. When Harry eventually went to tell his father that he intended to marry the American actress Meghan, that's in quotation marks, he already knew, as William had told him. His brother, who was present, asked again, "Are you sure, Harold?" That's clunky written, but basically William was there too. I didn't realize that when he went to talk to Charles about it. And William asked again, "Are you sure about this?" And Harold replied, "I am, Willie." So then it says, quote, he didn't care about any potential difficulties. Charles then dropped a bombshell saying he could not afford to pay for Meghan going forward, as well as Camilla, William, Catherine and the young family. This understandably infuriated Harry. Don't you worry, I'm planning on a video on this very thing. We've all heard the stories how she outspent every other royal in just those few short days, 72 days of service. But I believe it was her first year she outspent every other royal. I need to look into it so I can directly tell you the facts, but I'm planning on working on a video of exactly how much, or as much as I can figure out, was spent during the time, not only in the, in the early days as a working royal, all that stuff. And I'd like to get some figures like that together, because I would be so pissed if I was William and, here comes Meghan trying to tell everybody they don't know what they're talking about, trying to outspend everybody, and she's still a mess. Like, what is happening? Now, I've had so many, I'm going off on a side note because I find your comments so interesting. You bring up things I didn't think about. Okay. A lot of you have a theory, it's all alleged, that the reason Meghan looks so sloppy and spins so much is because she is somehow billing the Duchy of Cornwall, or allegedly was, billing the Duchy of Cornwall account for these high-priced items, would not tailor them, so that way she can either, I don't know if return is the right word, or just resell them, or what, and try to get some money out of it. That's an interesting theory. So I'm going to leave it here because things are getting interesting and heated and everything in between. And I do like this point of view. We've heard a lot about Harold and fraud, but I like hearing about how Charles was involved, and I like hearing these extra details about how William really did try to help him behind the scenes and tried to make sure he was thinking about, what he was doing. And of course, Harold always picks the wrong option every single time. So infuriating. Anyway, guys, I apologize I sound like this. I promise I feel good. I just sound weird, and I look forward to bringing you more videos very soon, just like this one. I want to keep going into this book. I thank you so much for being here and for all the comments, all the love and support. It really means the world to me. If you want to further support the show, I do encourage you to check out my Patreon. I do a lot of extra content over there, deep dives, lots of fun stuff. I even cover episodes of Sex and the City if that's your jam, but a lot of Harry and Meghan stuff. So check that out. It's patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps. That's where you can become an executive producer. I'd like to thank my executive producers so much for all the support. So I'm going to read your names, and if you want to become one, check it out on patreon.com. All right, a huge thank you to Linda. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Paige. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you to Mary. Thank you to Amy. Thank you, Mr. K. Thank you, Kay. Thank you to Shauna and to Brenda. Thank you, Aaron and Frank. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Ann M. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Ann H. Thank you, Karen. Thank you to Corey. Thank you to Glennis. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dewey. Thank you to Patty. Thank you to Adair Becker. Thank you to Erica. Thank you, Amber. Thank you to Annette, to Barb G. Thank you, Diana LOL. Thank you, Allison B. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Pauline. Thank you, KT. Thank you, Jolene. Thank you, Stromboli. Thank you to Catherine. Thank you to Loie. Thank you to Lucy H. Thank you to Georgia. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Robin's Landing. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Mara. Thank you, Ashley C. Thank you, Molly. Thank you to Amber. Thank you to Ashley. Thank you to Amanda. Thank you to Michelle. Thank you, Sansquid. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you to Dee Dee. Thank you to Nina. Thank you to Heather. Thank you to Tracy. Thank you, Penny. And thank you, Dombey. Thank you, Android P. Thank you, S, and thank you, Aaron M. So if you would like your name shouted out and as an executive producer, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Real Housewives Recaps. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to bring you the next part of Spare Us. Take care. Bye-bye.